an NBA insider drops a bombshell on the Giannis trade, talking about how teams should approach the Giannis trade and how the Bucks and Giannis will be perceiving and pursuing this next portion of his career. And we're going to break it down here on Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys take a spur of the moment to get every Spurs moment by hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss all the great content we have coming for you. But let's just get underway with it. New report on Celtics, Knicks, we don't care about them, and Spurs' interest in Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. The Milwaukee Bucks, obviously two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, could be on the verge of a breakup this offseason. We saw how their year ended to the Indiana Pacers in 5. The way their season ended, and the way obviously Halliburton's dad doing it, like, it just felt like an ending to something. Like, obviously things gone sour, like the Kobe and Shaq breakup. They lost to the Pistons in 5, and then you were like, oh, okay. It just felt like that was going to be over when the Warriors lost to the Raptors, the Heat lost to the Spurs. Like, when you have those big players and they kind of just get to that point, it just feels like they're going to split. But with many thinking the superstar forward could request a trade after 3 consecutive first-round playoff exits, Antetokounmpo could be one of the best players to ever hit the open trade market if he does request a trade, meaning almost every NBA team will be lined up out the door to send in their best offer. However, some trade destinations stand out more than most. And we're going to stand out the most because we have arguably the most assets to give, plus we have a team that is ready-made afterwards. But we'll get into that. The Spurs have been discussed as a potential destination for Antetokounmpo, especially after they jumped up in the draft lottery to land the 2nd overall pick and bolster their assets in a potential blockbuster trade. ESPN Brian Windhorst reports on the Spurs' possibility for trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that right here is... it's realistic because the Spurs definitely have the assets to both trade for Giannis and have a contending team on the other side of it. But I gotta tell you, you have to compute with what Giannis may want. Of course, Giannis is a superstar in this scenario. What he wants is going to be the most prevalent and the most important thing. You know, every year he wants to go and he wants to win a championship. We can do that with this roster. He's talked about how organizational structure matters to him. This team has organizational structure, of course. We're going to be a city and we're going to be a state that is going to welcome him with open arms. So, no state income tax. So the thing about Giannis being a San Antonio Spur and the possibility of that happening is we have everything we need to become a contender afterwards, as Brian Windhorst had said. A lot of teams don't have the capabilities, like the Miami Heat might be able to get him. You trade Bam, you trade Tyler Hero, you trade some future picks, but they're going to be in the same position the Bucks are now, with a team that cannot win. We are in a position where we can do both. But while the pairing of Giannis with Wemby in San Antonio would be a dream, the Bucks getting the trade to the Western Conference seems more unlikely, just because the West has a lot of talent. But Giannis has never shied away from talent. That is just more speculation. Like, Giannis obviously is not afraid of anybody, playing with anybody. And if your team is good enough, I get the Thunder of 168 games and they look like they're going to be great. But if you're good enough, what does it matter? You get through the Western Conference, you get through that gauntlet, and then you're in the East. You play whoever you are in the East, you should have a decided advantage there. But another thing that makes this Giannis trade extremely welcomed. It's something that could actually become likely. It's realistic now. The Spurs have a realistic path to the Giannis blockbuster trade, and it just opened up for another reason. Obviously, the biggest thing for this whole trade with Giannis, especially for all of us Spurs fans, is we don't want to give up too much. Giving rid of Castle, it's not happening. We don't want to get rid of Castle. Obviously, we would love to keep the second pick, but it's an unknown at this point. We know it's Dylan Harper, but we don't know what he's going to be in the league. He could be good, he could be great, he could be he could be bad. I don't think he's going to be or bad. I think he's at minimum going to be good, and then he has the potential to be great. But we don't know what it's going to be. Giannis is a known. And so that's the thing. We have known commodities in Fox, Wemby, and Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sochan. We have those ones. Now it's, are we fine trading to get a known, an unknown for a known? But the Pelicans right now have made everybody on their roster available, according to Insider Kevin O'Connor. Why does this matter? The Pelicans could open this up to a three-way trade, and the Pelicans have the 2026 Milwaukee pick and the 2027 Milwaukee pick. So Milwaukee wants their own picks, but they don't have them. I was in the Drew Holiday trade a while back. So they don't. The thing with the Bucks right now is trading Giannis is almost something they have to do because of the fact that they don't have money, they don't have the capabilities of drafting young talent because they don't have first-round picks. So they need to somehow acquire assets to help build their roster out because, as you see now, you can't do it with just one guy, and you need depth in this league, as you're seeing with the Pacers being really good, the Thunder being really good, the Timberwolves being really good. You need depth in this league. But we see here that you would think involving a third team might make things a little bit more hairy, a little bit more sketchy. It actually would make things easier because the Spurs wouldn't have to give up 5 first-round picks, maybe 6 first-round picks. I mean, we saw Mikal Bridges go for 5. We saw Rudy Gobert go for 4. And I understand that they had less players involved, but you might have to give up 6 first-round picks for Giannis, and you don't want all 6 of them coming from the San Antonio Spurs. You make do with what you make do, because obviously you're going to have to give up some pieces, but you don't want to have to give up the world to go get Giannis, because then it really hamstrings yourself for the future, and this should be a now move. And with the fact that we have Wemby, we have Castle, this can still be a future outlook. You get him in situations, you get him in the playoffs, you get him in the finals, and then you grow as a player, because you have to take those nicks, those bruises, and those bumps, learn how to win, learn how to play winning basketball game in and game out. He does that with a guy who's already been to the mountaintop, already won a finals MVP. The sky could be the limit there. We saw what Dwayne Wade did for LeBron when he played in Miami. That first LeBron, that second LeBron finals runs compared to that third and on, two completely different players. But Atlanta's picks are starting to lose more value because they're playing better. They're going to get more talent. So the Atlanta picks are like up in the air. They're not like the, oh my goodness, this guy has like top 2, top 3 potential. It's more going to be that bottom of the lottery to even like outside of the lottery there. You don't know what the Timberwolves and the Celtics are going to be in 28 and 30. You think they probably should be good with Jason Tatum there still, Jaylen Brown on the Celtics case. So the point of this is, the picks that we have right now obviously always could be good because you don't know what's going to happen in that year. But at the same time, if we have the ability to get a known quantity plus keep some of this asset, it would be the best thing for the Spurs. But not that the Spurs are going to do anything crazy by pushing out 6 first-round picks. That's just not how they operate. It's one of those things, though, and one of the situations where adding in the Pelicans would make this go from a very difficult trade to a less difficult trade. It's still going to be hard. You have to obviously cross the T's, dot the I's, figure out everything. And just to see kind of how this would look if you can see this, this is a mock trade that's like, I don't know, because obviously it's an unknown with these 3 teams and what these 3 teams are looking to do. Obviously, you want this. If you're the Spurs, you want Giannis. The Bucks, they want assets. The Pelicans, they would be there kind of just as that filler team, but they would also want to get a little bit younger to go along with Zion if they're still keeping Zion. Trey Murphy, who they signed to a longer contract. DeJounte Murray, who obviously was injured last year. But here's the mock trade. So the Pelicans send over C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and both Milwaukee picks, the 26 and 27 Milwaukee pick to the Bucks. The Spurs give Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson to the Pelicans, and then to the Bucks they send this year's second pick, and they send a 2028 swap, or the 2030 swap with Minnesota. And then we get Giannis. What that does is for the Pelicans, McCollum's on an expiring contract next year. Next year's his last year on that deal. So the Bucks can take in that salary knowing that salary can leave the Bucks here in just a year. They get young pieces that they're able to build for now and the future for. Kelly Olynyk's there is just for salary purposes. So the Bucks are able to get younger. They get talent and ability to draft for the future, and they're actually getting cap space. So they can make some moves in free agency moving forward after this year. The San Antonio Spurs are getting Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, we are getting the Greek freak. We're getting the guy, and we don't have to give up 6 first-round picks this one. We only have to give up 3. And then for the Pelicans, they get a different pick. They get the Atlanta in 2027 pick, so the Bucks get back their picks, but they do recoup a pick in the first round. They get 2 younger guys in Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell. You get Devin Vassell, who can basically is like CJ McCollum, a bigger CJ McCollum, not as great as a three-point shooter, but kind of like CJ McCollum, a secondary scorer for a roster. But he can play alongside DeJounte Murray, him, and then you got Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson. You could make that into if you're healthy, that team can truly compete for a 4th seed in the Western Conference. And then you get Keldon Johnson off the bench, another young asset who's on 2 years left in his deal. So if you want to let him walk, you can, but he is a younger piece that's also there to help contractually. A trade for Giannis with a 3-team trade would look something like that. Obviously, Harrison Barnes might be there instead of Keldon Johnson, or there's certain picks that they aren't there, that they are there. But a trade for Giannis is going to look similar to that. So on the Spurs side of things, we'd be giving up Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, the number 2 pick, Atlanta pick, the Atlanta 2027 pick, and then a pick swap in 2030, and we'd be getting Giannis back. I would be good with that. I understand you're giving up an unknown. I understand you're giving up an unknown and Dylan Harper, who could be very good to great. But you're also getting in a top 15 player to ever play basketball, 2-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP. You are getting one of them in their prime. This is not like David Robinson and Tim Duncan. This is that plus a little bit more in the sense of you got both of them in their prime rather than Tim Duncan being super young and then obviously David Robinson being on the back half of his career. Not that Wemby's in his prime yet, but he can get to prime, and we know how great he is already. But let me know in the comments what you think about that specific mock trade, what you think about adding in a 3rd team, and what you think about Giannis in general. Are you as good, great, or not great on that trade? Let me know, though, in the comments what you guys think. This has been Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll be seeing all of you guys very soon.